I recently got a 30-page editorial letter back from my editor who did a developmental edit for me, and I want to show you the 2 things that I struggled with most that she pointed out, and I'm going to show you examples in my story of what they were and how I rewrote them. I'm a new writer, so I don't have any problems telling you what I'm not good at or what I struggle with because I haven't been doing this for very long, so I give myself the grace of understanding that. I hope you do that too. You can't just be fantastic at something automatically when you first start out, right? It's practicing, learning, getting feedback, studying, reading, writing, all that kind of stuff. So I hope this helps. I have a novella and a collection of short stories out, but the book that I sent in to get a developmental edit for was my first go at a full-length novel, and I definitely struggled in a few areas. The 2 things that she mentioned were showing and the why. When I say showing, I don't mean that I was doing more telling versus showing, because you hear that a lot. As a newbie, show don't tell is reiterated and just like beaten into your brain if you study any kind of writing. It wasn't that I was doing more telling, it was that I wasn't showing enough. I was showing what was happening through descriptive action, but I wasn't showing the emotion and what that meant to the character. And I realized that because my editor wrote, showing is about showing the readers the meaning of the moment. It's about giving the emotion behind the people, places, and things, showing readers what it's like to be in your character's skin as things unfold. What I was doing is I was showing in the sense of, this is what's happening, this is the description of what's happening, but my character was not interpreting it enough. And there was not enough emotion in the story. So she had mentioned that it was difficult to connect with her at sometimes because my female main character wasn't very reactive and emotional to the things that were going on. It was more so, this was her dialogue, this was the action of what was happening, the description of the setting, but there was not enough emotion to grab you and make you care. Here's an example from the draft that I sent her. For a little bit of context, Ravenna, my female main character, just got done fighting a demon. She's a witch, and it did not go well. She's very exhausted and tired, and it didn't go well. So the original line, this is Ravenna speaking, said, "It's baffling. I've never seen something be impervious to our powers before, especially fire. I don't understand it." And then the next line is another character speaking. So my editor wrote on the side, what does this mean for Ravenna? What is she feeling toward the demons? By the dialogue, you kind of get a sense that she's a little bit dumbfounded. You know, I've never seen something be impervious to our powers. I don't get it. But how is she interpreting that? So I rewrote it as, it's baffling. I've never seen something be impervious to our powers before, especially fire. I don't understand it. Just another question she didn't have an answer for. Another reminder of how she was failing to stop their suffering. Part of her character arc is a feeling of inadequacy as a leader, and so that's a good time to put in there showing how she is dumbfounded that her powers didn't work. She doesn't know what she's going to do. She's the queen. She's supposed to keep her coven safe, and she didn't, basically. The only reason she survived is because the demon ran away. So basically adding, you don't have to add a whole lot to change it, and hopefully I'm even doing this right. If my editor watches this, and you can tell me if I did it right or if it still needs work. But adding how your character feels about what's going on, that is something that was lacking in my novel. The next part that I needed to work on was showing more of the why. So she put on here, showing can also roll into the big why question. The why question is very important. For example, why is your character pouring themselves a cup of coffee? Are they thirsty, tired, and looking for a pick-me-up? Do they have a caffeine addiction? Can they not go a single morning without it? Why are they pouring that cup of coffee? Readers need to know the reason behind every action, thought, emotion, etc. Not only is the why question essential in showing who a character is, but it's also important in showing how the story evolves. I'm going to read a part that she said I did well in, that it was a good example of the show and the why. For context, Ravenna is talking to the king, and he's not being very nice, and he's threatening her, and so the line starts like this. Her nails were pressed so tight into her palms they nearly drew blood. He had the upper hand, and there was nothing she could do. So you have the showing. She's frustrated, she's angry, so her hands are balled into fist, so tight that her nails are pressing into her skin, so she's angry. Why is she angry? Why is she reacting that way? Because the king has the upper hand, and there's nothing she could do. Now, before, I had that line out in my old draft, and it was just, her nails were pressed so tight into her palms they nearly drew blood. Ravenna let out a deeply frustrated breath. So I'm showing that she's angry and frustrated, but just adding one little line in there to show exactly why she's upset and why she's reacting that way. Also helps you get an idea of the character's understanding, because now she realizes he has the upper hand. If that line was not in there, the reader might be wondering exactly what she's thinking. They know what she's feeling because she's frustrated, her hands are clenched into fists, she let out a frustrated breath, whatever. But why is that? He has the upper hand, and she's helpless now in a situation where it's very dangerous to be helpless. I hope I explained all that in a way that was easy to understand, but those were the two biggest comments from my editor, is using more of the show and then the why behind the show. And essentially it all boiled down to adding more emotion into it. I was describing what was going on pretty well, I think, but there was not enough interpretation by the characters to make the reader emotionally connect. And as a reader, that's what we want to do. We want to connect with the story. So I'll probably make another video also, because I redid my draft after all of this feedback, and it's with another editor right now. So she may send it back and be like, hey, you didn't do any of this right, so let's try and fix it. But we'll see.